I woke up in my sister's body on the morning of her wedding, staring at a face in the mirror that wasn't mine, while she danced away in mine to marry the man who'd framed me for embezzlement and left me rotting in a federal prison for 5 years. The betrayal hit like a freight train from the South Side. My own blood, Evelyn, had orchestrated the body swap with some black market neurotech wizard in a dingy Milwaukee lab, trading places so she could escape the noose tightening around her neck for siphoning millions from our family's hedge fund. And me?
Vivian Hale.
The loyal fixer who'd covered her tracks for a decade, taking the fall as the scapegoat, sentenced to 25 to life in Supermax. My name dragged through the tabloids as the Hale heiress who hustled her own legacy. But freedom came early, courtesy of a glitch in the system. A sympathetic guard with a gambling debt I paid off from smuggled commissary cash, whispering about a neural echo that could reverse the swap if I played my cards right. I didn't hesitate. One night in the shadows of the prison yard, under a blood moon that felt like divine mockery, I jacked into the underground circuit Evelyn had left dangling, a rogue AI patch from the same lab. The reversal burned like acid through my veins. But when the lights flickered back on, I was me again, Vivian. 5 feet 10 inches of sharp cheekbones and sharper regrets, slipping out through a laundry chute into the Indiana dunes, with nothing but a burner phone, $100 in crumpled bills from a dead inmate's sock, and a ledger etched in my brain of every dirty deal she'd pinned on me. That $100 bought me a Greyhound ticket to Chicago, the city that birthed our family's fortune and buried it in scandals. I crashed in a flop house off Halstead, the kind where the walls reeked of stale weed and broken dreams, and spent the first week hustling odd jobs, bartending at a dive where ex-cons swapped war stories like baseball cards. But revenge isn't a side gig, it's the main event. Evelyn thought she'd won, living my life, schmoozing at galas in my old penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, popping champagne with the SEC investigators she'd bribed to look the other way. Our father,
Harlan Hale.
the silver-haired titan who'd built Hale Capital from a loop basement into a Wall Street behemoth, had disowned me publicly after the trial, calling me the rotten apple that poisoned the barrel. Little did he know his golden child Evelyn was the worm at the core. I started small, testing the waters. That $100 turned into $500 when I shorted a penny stock tip from a drunk trader at the bar, Evelyn's old playbook, the one she'd stolen from me. From there, it snowballed. I hit up underground poker dens in Pilsen, bluffing with a poker face honed in prison therapy circles, raking in 5 figures by month's end. But money was just the bait. The real hook was information. I cultivated sources. A former Hale intern turned whistleblower, nursing grudges in a Wicker Park coffee shop, a hacker kid from the South Side who owed me for smuggling his sister's cigs in the joint.
Piece by piece,
I rebuilt the puzzle Evelyn had shattered. Proof of her embezzlement, the offshore accounts in the Caymans, the falsified logs that swapped my digital fingerprints for hers on the fraudulent trades.
Kontroversie brewed fast.
My first big move? Leaking a redacted memo to the Chicago Tribune. Anonymous, of course, hinting at insider rot in Hale Capital without naming names. The stock dipped 3%, enough to spook investors and force Evelyn into damage control. She went on CNBC, all pearl-clutching poise in my stolen Chanel, decrying the ghosts of past mistakes. Ghosts? Bitch. I'm the poltergeist. Social media erupted. Hale scandal trended, with blue-check finance bros calling it a witch hunt, while Reddit's r/Wall Street bets crowed about shorting the stock to hell. I watched from a burner laptop in a public library, heart pounding like a jackhammer, knowing I'd just painted a target on my back. Was it ethical? Hell no. But ethics are for people who haven't had their identity stolen along with their freedom. By month 3, that initial $100 had ballooned to $250,000 through a series of calculated risks, options trading on volatile tech stocks, ghostwriting market reports for shady newsletters, even a one-off gig rigging a fantasy football league for a Bears exec who liked his wins dirty. I rented a nondescript studio in Logan Square, walls papered with printouts of Evelyn's emails, taunting ones she'd sent to her lover, that sleazy prosecutor who'd buried the case against me. Viv's out of the picture now, baby. Time to make this permanent.
Permanent.
The word festered like an open wound. I'd covered for her since we were kids in that sprawling Oak Park manse, faking alibis for her shoplifting sprees, doctoring grades when Harlan's expectations crushed her fragile ego. The big one? When she OD'd on fentanyl-laced coke at a frat party in Ann Arbor. I took the campus security heat, expelled in her stead while she slinked back to Chicago with a slap on the wrist.
Now.
It was payback season. I infiltrated her inner circle under the alias Vera Knox, a fictional venture capitalist with a fabricated LinkedIn glowing from AI deepfakes. My first in a charity auction at the Art Institute, where Hale Capital was the platinum sponsor. Dressed in thrift store knockoffs that screamed old money, I bid aggressively on a Basquiat sketch, outflanking Evelyn's table with a wire transfer from an untraceable crypto wallet. She noticed, oh, she noticed. Post-auction mixer. Champagne flutes clinking like fragile egos. She sidled up, her eyes narrowing behind that Botox mask.
Vera.
Right? Bold move on the Basquiat. Reminds me of my sister, always one-upping everyone, until she crashed and burned. I smiled, sipping my Veuve, the irony tasting like bile. Sisters can be complicated. Sometimes you have to become them to understand the fire they left behind. That exchange lit the fuse. Evelyn ramped up security, but I was already 3 steps ahead. My hacker kid,
Jamal,
breached her smart home system, piping an audio of her late-night rants to Harlan. Dad, Viv's ghost is haunting us. We need to liquidate before the vultures circle. Harlan, voice gravelly from decades of scotch and stress, chuckled. Let the dead stay buried.
Eve.
You're the future now.
Buried.
The word echoed my cell block nightmares. The clang of steel doors sealing me away from sunlight, from justice. I decided then, the controversial call. I'd frame it as self-defense. But really, it was scorched earth. Using Jamal's backdoor, I planted digital breadcrumbs, forged emails linking Evelyn to a Ponzi scheme targeting minority-owned startups in Bronzeville, the kind of predatory play that would ignite racial justice activists and tank Hale's ESG ratings overnight. The leak dropped on a Friday, timed for maximum weekend frenzy. By Sunday, protests clogged Michigan Avenue. Signs reading, Hale steals from the hood, waving like middle fingers to the Mag Mile elite. Evelyn's wedding photos, her and my body, radiant in white lace, circulated as memes, the bride who stole her sister's life. Stock plummeted 15%, wiping $200 million off the market cap. I cashed in my shorts, watching the numbers climb on my laptop screen. $10 million, then $25, $50. But money couldn't buy the satisfaction of seeing her squirm on a Zoom board meeting, pixels betraying the sweat beading on her forehead. Harlan called an emergency summit at the family estate in Lake Forest, the one with the infinity pool overlooking the yacht club where we'd learned to sail as girls. I knew because I'd bugged the conference line. Petty? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. That's when the tension coiled tightest. I tailed her there in a rented Prius, parking in the tree lane like some B-movie stalker. Through binoculars, I watched the convoy pull up, black SUVs disgorging suits and Evelyn, flanked by private security that screamed paranoid. Harlan emerged on the portico, his once imposing frame hunched, liver spots mapping his decline. They retreated inside, but my earpiece crackled with Jamal's feed, accusations flying, Evelyn tearfully denying, Harlan thundering about legacy and loyalty. "You sound just like Vivian when you lie," he snapped. Silence. Then her venom. "Vivian's dead to us."
Dad.
"And if she's not, I'll make sure she stays that way." Chills raced down my spine, not fear, but fury, the kind that forges steel from shattered glass. I could have ended it there, anonymously tipping the feds with a full ledger. Clean. Legalish. The American way. But where's the drama in due process?
No.
I chose the path that would split opinions like a Supreme Court ruling, direct confrontation, laced with a personal twist. That night, as thunder rumbled over the lake, I slipped past the perimeter fence, years of prison calisthenics paying off in silent vaults over wrought iron spikes. The estate loomed like a Gothic fever dream, floodlights carving shadows from ivy-choked stone. I gained entry through the old wine cellar, a relic from Prohibition days. Keycode unchanged because Evelyn was too arrogant to audit the basics. Upstairs, the study, Harlan's sanctum, walls lined with first editions and oil portraits of Hale's past, judgmental eyes glaring from gilt frames. He sat alone, nursing a tumbler of Macallan, the board meeting's fallout etched in his scowl. I stepped from the alcove, gun drawn, a Glock I'd scored from a South Side contact, untraceable and cold in my palm. Controversial? Hell yes. Armed home invasion in Lily White Lake Forest would make headlines from Fox to MSNBC. Debates raging on gun rights versus vigilantism. Evening. "Father," I said, voice steady as Lake Michigan ice. He froze, glass halfway to his lips, eyes widening in the lamplight. Recognition dawned slow, like a hangover. "Vivian? Jesus Christ. Girl, you're supposed to be dead, buried, out of the picture?" I finished, holstering the piece but keeping my stance wide. Ready. Evelyn's doing, with a little help from her friends in low places. The swap. The frame job. The 5 years I spent breathing recycled air in Terre Haute while she played house in my skin. "Ring any bells?" He set the glass down, hands trembling, not from fear, but the weight of decades deferred. Confessions spilled like cheap bourbon. He'd known, suspected anyway, buried the doubts under layers of denial because Evelyn was his favorite, the delicate one.
Me?
The workhorse. Disposable. "I thought it would blow over," he muttered. "Family first. Family."
The word tasted like ash.
I could have shot him then. Mercy kill for the man who'd chosen blood over blood. But revenge isn't murder. It's erosion. Watching empires crumble brick by damning brick. Instead, I slid a USB drive across the desk, every file, every wire transfer, time-stamped proof of Evelyn's sins, including the body swap contract from that Milwaukee quack, neural scans and all. Give her this ultimatum. Confess. Or it all goes public at dawn. And Dad, if you warn her, you're next on the list. He nodded. Broken. The Titan reduced to a whisper. I left through the French doors, vanishing into the storm. The rain washing away footprints, but not the electric hum of what came next. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving. The kind of Chicago morning that promises misery. My portfolio ticked over $75 million, fueled by the chaos. But the real windfall was the call from Evelyn's number, blocked. But Jamal traced it. "Viv, is that you?" Dad said.
God. How?
Her voice cracked. Not with remorse, but calculation. The schemer sniffing for leverage. I met her at a neutral spot, the old family diner in Bridgeport. Vinyl booths scarred from generations of grease and grudges. She arrived in disguises, sunglasses, scarf. But I knew that slouch. The way she fidgeted with her rings. We slid into a corner booth. Fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets. The waitress ignoring us for the breakfast rush. "You look good for a corpse," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Up close, the swap's toll showed, faint scars from my prison tats peeking at her collar. A ghost of the ink she'd lasered off but couldn't erase. I leaned in, voice low. "And you look like hell in my face."
Cease.
Enjoying the inheritance? The penthouse views? The lovers who whisper sweet nothings about how I'm the villain? She glanced around, paranoia sharpening her gaze. This is insane. The swap was a one-time fix. I panicked.
Viv.
The feds were closing in.
And you.
You always cleaned up my messes. I figured you'd handle it from inside. Cut a deal. Handle it. Like I was the family plumber. Not the sister who'd OD'd in my dorm room and left me to explain the vomit-streaked sheets to the RA. You stole my life.
Eve.
5 years of concrete and regret, while you waltzed into mine. Marrying Derek, the prosecutor who rigged my trial, in a ceremony that should have been mine if you'd let me live it.
Derek.
The name soured like curdled milk. He'd been my fiancé once. Before Evelyn's whispers turned him. Before the affair that birthed the frame-up. She reached for my hand, a crocodile tear welling. We can fix this. Money. A new identity. Dad's on board. He wants us together again. Lies. All of it. Jamal's feed from the study bug confirmed Harlan's ultimatum delivery. But Evelyn's play was to divide and conquer. Maybe poison my coffee with something untraceable. I pulled back, sliding a napkin across the table, coordinates scribbled for a Cayman Bank vault, access codes to the $100 million I'd amassed, half hers if she turned herself in. Confess on live TV.
Eve. Tonight.
On the evening news. Or I hit send on the full dossier, your wedding vows. The neurotech invoice. Derek's pillow talk recordings where he laughs about burying Viv for good. Her face drained of color. The diner din fading to a roar in my ears. This was the controversial crux. Offering mercy to the monster. A chance at redemption that screamed hypocrisy from every pore. Was I any better? Dangling forgiveness, like a noose? The internet would feast, feminists decrying sisterly betrayal, conservatives hailing family reconciliation, everyone missing the rot underneath. She bolted then, napkin clutched like a grenade pin, but not before hissing, "You always were the dramatic one. This ends with you in the ground for real." The threat hung as she vanished into the sidewalk scrum, but I was prepared. Tales from my network shadowed her to O'Hare, where she boarded a private jet to Nassau, desperate, sloppy. I didn't pursue, the trap was set. That night, as the city pulsed with Black Friday frenzy, Evelyn's confession aired on WGN, a tear-streaked monologue from a safe house, blaming corporate pressures and a moment of weakness, omitting the swap. The betrayal.
Me.
Subtle, but enough to crater Hale Capital another 20%. My shorts pushing me past $100 million. Harlan called it a win, whispering thanks through a secure line. But I heard the fracture in his voice, the empire teetering, his legacy a punchline. The climax brewed in the Bahamas, where Evelyn hunkered in a rented villa, Derek pacing like a caged hyena. I flew commercial, coached to keep it humble, landing in the humid slap of island air that reeked of rum and regret. Jamal's drone feeds showed the compound, white stucco walls, infinity pool merging with turquoise seas, guards patrolling with AR-15s that screamed overkill. My $100 million bought discretion, a local fixer with ties to the constabulary, turning a blind eye for a wire of 7 figures. I infiltrated at midnight, wading through mangroves that clawed like accusing fingers, Glock tucked in my waistband, heart a war drum. Derek first, in the study overlooking the breakers, drunk on piña coladas and denial, scrolling emails for escape hatches. I zip-tied him to the desk chair, gag tasting of his own cologne. Vivian Hale, he slurred, eyes bulging. The bitch who wouldn't stay buried. I pressed the barrel to his temple. Controversial calculus flashing. Execute the enabler. Or extract. Tell me why, I demanded. Voice a whip crack. He spilled Evelyn's seduction. The shared greed. The swap as her genius idea to pin it all on me. She said you'd break in prison. Roll over. But you're too stubborn.
Stubborn.
My curse and crown. I left him breathing. Zip ties tight. Anonymous 911 call ensuring Bahamian cops would find the recordings I'd planted. His confession. Her complicity. Evelyn waited in the master suite, silhouetted against French doors flung wide to the trade winds. She turned. No surprise in her eyes, just weary calculation. A bottle of rose half empty on the nightstand. Knew you'd come. Always the avenger. We circled like prize-fighters, the room thick with salt and unspoken sins. This is where it ends.
Viv.
Shoot me, and you're no better. Walk away with your millions. Let karma handle the rest.
Tempting.
The easy out. The debatable mercy. America loves a redemption arc. After all. But as lightning forked the horizon, illuminating the faint neural scar on her neck from the swap, fury crested. I lunged, not with the gun, but hands grappling for the emergency injector I'd sourced from the Milwaukee contact, the one laced with a neurodisruptor to force another swap. Mid-air reversal. She fought dirty, nails raking my cheek, knee to my gut echoing prison yard brawls. We tumbled to the terrace, waves crashing below like applause for the damned. You think you're the hero? She gasped,
Pinning me against the railing.
I saved us. Dad's empire was crumbling. Your ethical trades were bleeding it dry. Lies twisted into half-truths. The first crack in my armor. But the injector pierced her thigh, serum flooding her veins. Agony arched us both, nerves firing like faulty wiring, bodies convulsing in a grotesque tango. When the world steadied, I was in her skin again, shorter,
Softer.
the villain shell. No, the swap held, but inverted, her mind in mine in hers, a Mobius strip of selves. Dawn gilded the villa as cops swarmed, Derek's call pulling them in. Evelyn, now piloting my body, stammered innocence. But the evidence avalanche buried her. Ledgers. Audios. The injector logs time-stamped to her prints. Harlan's jet touched down hours later, face ashen as he claimed his real daughter from Bahamian custody.
Me?
Trapped in her form. I watched from a holding cell, the twist uncoiling like a serpent. The reversal wasn't perfect. Echoes lingered, her memories bleeding into mine. Flashes of guilt I'd never owned. Love for a fractured family I'd long excised. Was it justice or curse? As they airlifted Vivian back to Chicago for a plea deal,
Millions intacts but sous le soiped éternel.
I smiled through the bars. They'd learn. Or they'd burn. Either way, the Hale legacy ended not with a bang, but a debatable whisper. Who is the monster now? The flight back to Chicago was a red-eye purgatory. Strapped into economy on American Airlines, the kind where the seats recline 2 inches and the guy next to you snores like a freight engine. I was still in Evelyn's body, petite frame that felt like an ill-fitting suit, her perfume clinging like a bad habit, but the swap's aftershocks hummed under my skin, neural ghosts whispering doubts I'd never voiced. $100 million sat in offshore vaults. Untouchable. But what good is fortune when your reflection mocks you? Harlan had spun the narrative masterfully. Evelyn's breakdown, the press release called it. A tragic mental health episode amid Hale Capital's renewed stability. Shares rebounded 10% on the sympathy play, burying the scandals under layers of PR gloss. America eats that shit up. Redemption for the rich. As long as it's photogenic. I landed at O'Hare under a blanket identity Jamal forged. Elena Voss, a mid-level accountant from Gary with a backstory of quiet competence.
No fanfare.
Just a cab to a safe house in Humboldt Park. The kind of walk-up where roaches host rent parties and the L rattles past like judgmental thunder. My first act? A deep dive into the echoes. The swap tech wasn't just a body jack, it fused psyches, leaving residual imprints. In the cracked mirror of the bathroom, Evelyn's face stared back. But my thoughts tangled with hers, flashes of her and Arbor Terror. The cold sweat of that OD. My hand, hers then, steadying her as ambulances wailed. Had I hated her less back then? Or was this the twist's poison? Softening the blade I'd honed for years? Revenge phase 2 kicked off with subtlety. The American art of the long con. I infiltrated Hale Capital as Elena. Resume padded with fabricated stints at Deloitte. Interview charm dialed to 11. HR bought hook,
Line.
and sinker, Evelyn's old assistant. Now Vivian's gatekeeper. Even complimented my familiar vibe. Desk in the derivatives pit. 72nd floor of the Aon Center. Glass walls framing the loop's relentless grind. From there, I audited the books. Eyes peeled for loose threads. Harlan had patched the holes. But Evelyn's greed left scars. Ghost accounts funneling kickbacks to Derek's campaign fund. He'd pivoted to politics post-scandal. Running for Illinois AG on a clean government platform that reeked of irony. Controversy simmered in the break room chats. Colleagues whispered about the sister switcheroo, half believing the tabloid spin that Evelyn had faked her identity for thrills, half suspecting deeper rot. I played neutral, nodding over vending machine coffee. But inside, the tension coiled like a spring. My controversial decision? Sabotage from within, not with hacks, but human frailty. I seduced a mid-level exec. Tom Riley, married. Catholic guilt etched in his laugh lines, over after-hours drinks at the Berghof. Elena, you're a breath of fresh air in this shark tank, he slurred. Hand brushing mine. Breath of fresh air?
Try hurricane.
In his Gold Coast condo. Sheets tangled and regrets pending. I coaxed confessions. Off-books trades. Harlan's quiet approvals. Evelyn's Cayman wires rerouted to Vivian's name for cover. Tom became my unwitting mole.
Feeding intel via encrypted texts. Convinced it was office romance.
Ethical quagmire? Absolutely. Adultery as espionage. The kind of plot twist that would fuel op-eds on Me Too versus Mercy. But necessity trumped morality. By week 4, I had a dossier thick enough to choke a grand jury. Meanwhile,
The echoes deepened.
nightmares blended our lives. Me as a girl, pushing Evelyn on the Oak Park swings, her laughter mingling with my adult rage. Was forgiveness seeping in, or just the text glitch eroding my resolve? I drowned it in work. Portfolio climbing to $120 million on leveraged bets against Hale's recovery. Evelyn, now fully ensconced as Vivian, throve in the glow-up. Paparazzi snaps showed her at the pump room, arm in arm with Derek. Her, my lithe frame draped in Dior. Smile, a weaponized curve. Harlan doted. Estate trust rewritten to favor the prodigal. Whispers of a CEO bump. But cracks spiderwebbed, board murmurs of audits. SEC sniffers circling like Lake Michigan gulls. My leak to ProPublica, anonymized through Tor, dropped mid-November. Hale heiress's hidden health horror or cover for corporate crime? It cited sources on the swap's permanence, hinting at ongoing fraud. Twitter ignited, Vivian or Evelyn trended. Therapists pontificating on identity theft's psyche toll. Crypto bros memeing neural swaps as the next NFT scam. The backlash hit Evelyn hard. A Vanity Fair profile painted her as the woman who lost herself, but commenters eviscerated, or stole her sisters. Derek's poll numbers dipped, donors fleeing to safer bets. Harlan called a town hall in the boardroom, voice booming over speakers. We're stronger together. Past is prologue. Prologue to what? I watched from my cubicle, feigning diligence. But Jamal's tap revealed the post-meeting panic, Evelyn railing at Harlan. She's out there.
Dad.
Elena Voss, it's her. We need to end this. Harlan, ever the patriarch, demurred. No more bodies.
Eve.
We play clean.
Clean.
The hypocrisy burned brighter than a South Side bonfire. My next move was the gut punch, controversial to the core. A decision that would cleave allies and ignite debates on loyalty's price. I reached out to Derek directly, posing as a constituent via his campaign site. Concerned voter with Hale intel, the email read, attaching a teaser file, his kickback logs, redacted just enough to tantalize. We met in a Edison Park. Autumn leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones. Him in a Burberry trench. Me and Evelyn's sensible pumps that pinched like accusations. MS. Voss, he greeted. Charm offensive dialed high. You say you have dirt on the family? I handed him a burner drive. Eyes locked. Enough to bury you both. Or save you if you flip on her. He laughed. A bark devoid of mirth. Flip on Viv. She's my world. Viv. The diminutive twisted like a knife, evoking beach days in Door County. His hand in mine before Evelyn's shadow fell. Your world built on my bones.
Derek.
The frame up. The wedding, while I rotted. Recognition flickered. Then denial. Evelyn's story checks out. You're delusional. Delusional. The word from a man who'd betted sisters like conquests. I pressed. Confess the swap. The affair. And I wire you $5 million to vanish.
Stay.
And the full file drops to the Sun-Times. Temptation warred in his eyes. Power versus peril. He pocketed the drive, promising to consider, but I knew the viper's bite. That night, my safe house alarm blared, prowlers. Derek's muscle-testing defenses. I bolted to a backup in Little Village. Glock heavier in my purse. The chase injecting adrenaline that blurred our echoes further, Evelyn's fear of abandonment mirroring my isolation. By December, snow blanketed the in an indifferent white. Hale Capital's holiday party loomed like a guillotine. Evelyn as Vivian would host, a spectacle of foie gras and forced cheer at the Drake Hotel. I crashed it as Elena, ticket comped via Tom's +1, dress a slinky number from Marshall's that hugged Evelyn's curves like a second skin. The ballroom glittered, crystal chandeliers dripping light on tuxes and gowns. Jazz trio crooning standards that masked the undercurrent of unease. Harlan spotted me first, toasting from the podium to new beginnings. His eyes lingered, a flicker of doubt. Evelyn, radiant in emerald silk, worked the room, but tension etched her laugh. Derek absent, his campaign in freefall after anonymous leaks. Mine, naturally, hinted at ethical lapses. I cornered her by the ice sculpture, flutes of Krug bubbling between us. Enjoying my life, Viv, I murmured. The alias a barb. She stiffened, scanning for eavesdroppers.
Elena.
Or should I say, the ghost who won't fade. Up close, in her stolen shell, the resemblance unnerved, our shared green eyes. Harlan's jawline, but her poise cracked under scrutiny. The echoes are loud, aren't they? Feeling my regrets yet? The OD I covered. The lovers I warned you off. She paled. Champagne sloshing.
Tech glitch.
It'll pass. But you playing dress up in my skin? Pathetic. Dad sees through you.
Doubt.
Delicious and sharp. I leaned in. Ask him about the USB I left. Or Derek's new Cayman account, $5 mil richer. Courtesy of your fiancé's cold feet. Her slap landed soft, muffled by gloves. But the sting echoed. Gasps rippled. Phones whipping out for the drama. Security loomed. But Harlan intervened, ushering us to a side parlor, velvet drapes and a decanter of cognac. The air thick with cigar ghosts. Enough, he growled, door clicking shut. Vivian, Elena, whoever the hell you are, this family's blood enough. Confessions cascaded, Harlan admitting he'd known the swap's basics. Buried it for stability. Evelyn blaming desperation. Tears real for once.
Me?
I laid it bare, the $100 start. The million-fold revenge. The echoes binding us in mutual torment. We're all monsters here. Dad. But I'm the one who built back. The parlor showdown stretched into the witching hour. Cognac loosening tongues. Evelyn broke first, sobbing about the pressure. Harlan's shadow. My competence a constant comparison. I wanted to be you, Viv. Just once. Wanted. Past tense. The swap's irony flipping the script. Harlan. Eyes wet. Proposed a truce. Dissolve Hale Capital. Redistribute assets. $50 mil each.
Clean slates.
Controversial? A white-collar surrender. Decried as elitist escape by Occupy remnants. Hailed as magnanimous by business pundits.
I countered, public mea culpa.
No NDAs.
Truth is the price.
They agreed. Dawn pact sealed with handshakes that felt like chains. But twists don't die easy. As we emerged to the emptying ballroom, Derek burst in disheveled, drive in hand,
Cops in tow.
She threatened me, he bellowed, pointing at Elena. Chaos erupted, badges flashing. Evelyn clutching Harlan, me frozen in the crossfire. The drive's contents spilled in the melee, my leverage. His betrayal. The swap's full schematic. Headlines would scream, Hail Twin Terror, identity swap scandal explodes. Derek cuffed. Evelyn catatonic. Harlan shielding his girls. In the scrum, our eyes met, hers and my body, mine and hers, a mirror of fractured souls. New Year's Eve in Chicago is a bipolar beast, fireworks exploding over the river like defiant stars, while wind off the lake bites with winter's grudge. The hail dissolution made front-page fodder, Wall Street Journal calling it a dynasty's dignified demise, Chicago Reader labeling it rich folks' game of musical chairs with stolen lives. Evelyn and I, bound in swapped shells, retreated to the Lake Forest estate under rehab pretense. Harlan's doctors prescribing therapies that probed deeper than flesh. $100 million secured my independence, invested in ethical funds, a quiet portfolio yielding 8% without the blood tax, but the echoes persisted, her whims bleeding into my choices, my steel tempering her frailties. Revenge's aftermath was a slow unravel, tense as a hung jury. Derek's trial-dominated spring feeds, federal racketeering charges. The Drive's files painting him as the swap's architect. Bribed the Milwaukee tech for personal favors. Evelyn testified in my body. Voice cracking on the stand, lies crumbling under cross. Her desperation, exposed as calculated coup. Jurors deliberated 4 days. The nation glued. Was it crime or cautionary tale? Verdict: guilty. 15 years in a minimum security club fed. The kind with golf greens and grievance podcasts. He glared at me in the gallery. Elena anonymous in the back row. But his eyes said he knew, the twist of bodies unmasking the beast within. Harlan aged a decade in months. The estate's grandeur mocking his shrinkage. We three circled like planets in eclipse, him in the study nursing regrets. Evelyn Viv now. Legally and lingering, pacing gardens with a therapist's leash. Me rebuilding in the guest wing. Laptop humming with new ventures. A micro-VC fund for South Side startups. Irony's nod to the Ponzi she'd preyed on. Controversial decisions lingered. Do I reverse the swap? Risk Harlan's fragile peace? Or embrace the inversion? Live as the villain to atone for the hero I'd failed to be? Debates raged online. Podcasts dissecting the Hale switch, justice or cruelty, with shrinks arguing identity fluidity. Ethicists decrying tech's hubris. The climax crested in June. Solstice sun baking the estate's lawns for Harlan's reconciliation gala. A subdued affair. Black tie with undertones of wake. Guests, ex-board members with wary smiles. Journalists sniffing for scoops. Jamal as my +1. Hacker chic in a borrowed tux. Evelyn arrived in my old gown. The one from her wedding. Arm looped through Harlan's, a picture of mended fences. But tension crackled. Air heavy as pre-storm ozone. During toasts, Harlan raised a glass. To family flawed, but fierce. Eyes met across the tent. Hers pleading.
Mina probing.
Later, by the pool.
She cornered me.
Viv, Elena, whatever. The echoes. There you now.
Stronger.
I feel your fire. The way you built from nothing.
Fire.
The $100 to millions. The revenge blueprint etched in sweat and shadows. And you feel the guilt? I pressed, water lapping like whispers. She nodded. Tears carving tracks in makeup. Every day. The OD. The frame. I stole your light to hide my dark. But in your skin. It's home now. Home. The word disarmed. Echoes sinking our heartbeats. My controversial call. Mercy's edge. I revealed the reversal injector. Hidden in my clutch, last dose from the contact. Potent enough for one final flip. Choose, I said. Back to your body. Face the world as Eve the Fallen. Or stay. Build as Viv the Survivor. But no more games. She chose stay, eyes fierce. My old resolve shining through. As Viv, I can fix what I broke. With you. As Elena, the shadow architect. Shadow. Fitting for the woman who'd risen from $100 in a dead man's sock. Harlan, eavesdropping from the treeline, emerged weeping. My girls. God help me. My girls. The gala dissolved into catharsis. Hugs awkward as exoskeletons. Guests dispersing with whispers of miraculous mending. But the twist reversed harder than neural code. Jamal's scan that night revealed the swap's permanence. Fusions too deep. Bodies claimed irrevocably. We'd lived the lie. Or truthed it into legend. Summer faded into fall. Chicago's rhythm reclaiming us. Evelyn Asviv launched a Hale Foundation for prison reform. Her speeches laced with my cadences, controversial authenticity. Critics crying white guilt theater, supporters praising penance. As Elena, consulted quietly, funneling millions into community tech hubs. Jamal at my side. Our partnership, a quiet empire. Harlan passed in October. Heart attack under golden leaves, well, equitable. Estate divvied without drama. His funeral packed holy name cathedral. Eulogies debating his legacy. Robber baron or reluctant redeemer. The ending? Debatable as a divided nation. We thrive, Evelyn in boardrooms. Me in backrooms, but echoes bind us. Her softness tempering my edge. My grit fortifying her flight. $100 million grew to $200. Hale's ghost funding futures brighter than our past. They learned, or pretended, America's great at that. But in quiet moments, staring at Lake Michigan's endless blue, I wonder, revenge's cost, or rebirth's price, hero or haunt, the mirror lies, but the fire endures. And in that ambiguity, we both win and lose.